Hey heathens, let's talk about circumcision. Now, I've tried this a couple times and I can't seem to get it to fit inside 10 minutes. So I'm going to be moving kind of quickly and I'm going to leave out a few things that I would really like to include, such as where this whole practice came from, why it's spread, and why it's so popular. We'll skip that part. Why do people do it? Okay, what are the reasons? All right, the first reason that they give is that, it helps protect the child against disease. Is that true? Number one, disease. Okay. The second thing that they'll tell you, maybe it won't be the second thing they'll tell you, but one of another thing that they'll tell you is that well, if the father is circumcised and the child is not, they may be traumatized to know that they, All right, we're gonna go ahead and nip that one right now. If that be the case, look down at your son and go, yeah, my parents cut off a piece of mine, yours is intact. I didn't think it would be that nice to cut off that piece. If you want to remove it later when you're older, you can. I think they'll be okay. But then, of course, you got kids who may look at them, in the locker room or whatever the case may be. Why is another boy looking at your penis anyway? I really don't see where that's really a valid argument. So we can wipe that one off. It looks better, according to who? Okay. Some women prefer circumcised, some women prefer uncircumcised. I don't see where that's a pretty level playing field. If it were the norm, women wouldn't see it as such a big deal. It's just that because it's become so normal that there are those who prefer it the other way around. If it weren't normal, then they would not see it as being a big deal. All right. Let's not worry about that one. You really come down to just two reasons: a health issue and a religious issue. Well, you know how I feel about the religious issue. We'll skip that. Health issue. Does it really benefit you any? No. Let's talk about the health risks if you aren't circumcised. Okay. They talk about different infections that could occur. They talk about various other problems that could occur. This is pretty simple to avoid these problems. What you do is you pull back the skin and you clean it. Now, hey, we all know how little boys are. They don't like doing that. You got to teach them. Okay, if it gets infected, well, then you need to treat it. What is the odds? What are the odds that you would have this problem with an uncircumcised penis? The same as a female having the exact same problem. Are we hacking up our little girls? No. In fact, we find that to be barbaric, and for good reason. So why don't we share the same thing with our sons? Okay. So if that's the case, if these risks are so low, why is that it? I mean, is that really all there is to it? Okay. They do have one thing on their plus side. Okay, a circumcised penis is about half as likely to get infected with the majority of STDs, including AIDS. You drop your chances by 50%, which sounds like a really big number. 50% reduction. Wow. Woo. But what exactly is your chances of contracting AIDS? Well, according to a study, let me get your source here real quick. D.K. Smith, as well as several other doctors. Let's see, there's a whole bunch of doctors here. This is the antiretroviral post-exposure prophylaxis after sexual interjection, drug use, or other non-occupational exposure to HIV in the United States study. Okay. So they studied this and they said, all right, well, how likely is it that you're going to actually contract HIV, circumcised or not? Well, seeing as how 0.6% of the world is infected with the HIV virus, a third of those are in sub-Saharan Africa. And then you combine that with the chance through penile insertion vaginally, because blood transfusions and all that stuff is wiped out because hey, circumcision is It doesn't have anything to do with all that. So we're just going penis to vagina. What is the chances? 5 in 10,000. If you were exposed to HIV, your chances are 5 in 10,000. That's 0.05% chance. Now, let's multiply the 0.05% chance that if you are exposed, that you'll actually contract the disease, times the 0.6% of the people who are actually infected. That means only 0.03 is your chance of getting infected with any random person. So you can reduce that from 0.03 to 0.015. Not much of a difference, is it? Okay, so now we've wiped that out. All right. Another thing they say is, oh, well, you should have it done when they're young so that they don't remember it when they're older. Should I go ahead and punch my son in the face because I already know he's going to get on my nerves as a teenager? He won't remember it when he's older. But if you cut it off now, you won't have the risk of problems later. If I cut off your hands now, you're not going to develop arthritis, are you? If I poke out your eyes, you won't get cataracts. If I just go ahead and kill you now, you can avoid cancer. Not a very good argument, is it? Okay, so now that we've covered that part of it, let's just look at a few other things here. All right, the British Medical Association says that there is a significant disagreement about whether circumcision is overall a beneficial, neutral, or harmful procedure. At present, the evidence, paraphrasing there a little bit, is contradictory, meaning there is no proof that this does you any good, because it doesn't. But are there risks if you do? If you are circumcised, what are your risks? Well, there is, of course, infection. Hey, isn't that what we're trying to avoid? Skin bridges. Meatal stenosis, probably not saying that right, which is basically narrowing of the urethra. Oh, yeah, and 1 in 500,000 will die. Plus, you have other situations where the procedure is botched and the child loses their penis. That happens 1 in a million times. Less often than a child dies. Twice. Or half as often as a child actually dies, which I think is crazy. Now, the ones that are dying, what is it from? Anesthesia. Truth is, only 45% of doctors use anesthetics when they're doing this procedure because of the risk of the death. The child is just not up for it. Those that do simply use a topical cream, which isn't very efficient. And a 2004 Cochrane review determined that the two preferred anesthetics that are used and considered safe neither completely eliminated pain. Okay, so in other words, this hurts. How bad does it hurt? Oh, well, babies exhibited homogeneous responses that consisted of sustained elevation of heart rate and high-pitched cry throughout the circumcision. In other words, they're screaming in pain. This really, really hurts. Okay, it really, really hurts. And you're doing this to your child with no anesthetic over half the time. People. And what? What for what? To eliminate the possibility of an infection, which they might get anyway because you did it, and reducing their chances of getting other problems that they're unlikely to get. And if they do get it later, you can always have the procedure later. Does this make any sense, people? I cannot see any logic in hacking off a piece of skin from your penis. Now, which brings us to the last thing. Does this piece of skin have a purpose? Well, besides being the most sensitive part, yes, it does. It traps the fluids. Okay, that's part of the whole infection problem. The fluids there, you have to clean that every once in a while. But it traps the fluids and makes it easier for insertion because it lubricates it, just like the vagina does. The woman gets stimulated, it lubricates itself. Well, the penis does the same thing. So it has a purpose too. And you're hacking it off. Why are we doing this to our son?